And you guys are awesome. The speakers before me are awesome. Whistler's awesome. I've never been here. And so this is awesome. But one of the things that I feel about the word awesome that I want to talk to you about today is that I think we toss it around a little bit like confetti. It's a word we use without always understanding what it really means. And I think this is the problem. And right now we're in what's called the days of awe in the Jewish tradition, which I think is a lovely coincidence. But I do think we use the word a little bit too much. And I'd like to talk to you today about how to maybe see it differently. And I'd like to talk about how to bring the awe back into awesome. Because one of the things I believe is that the physical manifestation of something being awesome is when we stand up for it. You know, so think about it. What do we stand up for? Well, we stand up when someone's done something extraordinary. You know, we give them a standing ovation, something musical. If somebody gets a home run, a touchdown, a goal, we stand up. We stand up out of respect for our elders. We stand up for the national anthem. Someone who's a good guy, who's there for you, good guy, good woman, is a stand-up person. So there's a lot of reasons why standing up is very special, but we reserve it for things that have really, really moved us. So what I want you to think about today is how do we put the awe back into awesome? I want to talk to you about what it is that I think can bring awe back. Because we've become awe-deprived, and I think a lot of you might agree with me that we don't live in times all the time that move us to think that things are excellent. I mean, we've got shortcuts. We've got shortcuts in cheating in sports, in politics, you know, in businesses. We have the arts have been cut. Arts funding have been cut. The schools don't have music in the arts. And you know, we don't always aspire to do things that are hard. And that's something I write and talk a lot about, which is when we do hard things, that's awesome. But I've raised 3 wonderful millennials, 27, 24, and 21. And one of the things I've lamented as I've raised them is that I think the standards for good enough have come to mean things are good enough. And I don't think good enough is good enough, and I don't think any of you believe good enough is good enough. I think we're here to talk about awesome and what we're going to do about it. So I have 3 points I want to talk to you today about that I think will help you bring awe back into awesome, and not just help all of you to become more awesome, but what really matters is that when people are awed and inspired, people change. The science of inspiration has found that when we're inspired by things that other people do that are truly extraordinary, we change on a chemical level. We change. And then when we do something extraordinary, something truly awesome, we change other people. So I am, therefore we all are. So the first point that I want to talk to you about today is that you can't keep what you don't give away. The second thing I want to say about you can't keep what you don't give away is again, very timely given what's happening in Haiti in the last 2 days. In my next book, which is called Getting Grit, I interviewed this man, Junior Bernard. Rarely am I dumbstruck, and I was dumbstruck as I interviewed him. He overcame or survived the earthquake in 2010 in Haiti. And as he was telling me these stories, I mean, I've read the news accounts, but to talk to someone who was there, who survived it, is a totally different experience. And he told me everybody lost somebody they loved. Everybody. Nobody was immune from this. Everybody lost someone they loved. And as he told me these stories about people trying to identify, you know, their loved ones who were dead, they could barely even see their faces because they were caked in dust and dirt and ashes. And he said, but Caroline, I learned something really extraordinary, and that was heaven is real. Heaven is real. And I said, Junior, how could you say heaven is real? You're talking to me about the biggest tragedy, not just in your life, in a generation of people in Haiti. And he said, I'll tell you why heaven is real, because I saw in the aftermath of this earthquake pure love. He said, if you had something that you could give to somebody else, you gave it to them. If you could get by on a spoon of food that day, you gave, the rest of your food to somebody else. And he said, in fact, there was a man who had a store, a food store. And when the earthquake happened, he had a lot of food, and he could have hoarded it. He could have kept it for himself, and he didn't. And he gave it all away. And that's why Junior told me, heaven is real, heaven is pure love. You can't keep what you don't give away. My second point is that other people matter. Other people matter. And so a little over 10 years ago, as I was introduced, this was part of my introduction, I was so blessed. I was in the very first class that was admitted to the University of Pennsylvania's Master's in Applied Positive Psychology course, the Science of Happiness. And I felt like I had died and gone to heaven. It was nirvana to go there and to interact with Marty Seligman and all of these luminaries, these people who are changing the world by researching the science of happiness. What makes us happy? What makes us thrive? What makes us flourish? But what was so interesting, even though we were always surrounded by these brilliant people who flew in to tell us about their research on gratitude and awe and altruism and meditation, I mean, it was just a cornucopia, a feast for the mind every month. And since then, in the last 10 years, the same thing. Over and over, we were stopped by our professors, one in particular, Chris Peterson, who said, for all this research, I want to tell you it boils down to one thing. Other people matter. That is what the science of happiness boils down to. Regardless of what research you look at, other people matter. And we know this. We know this from the Harvard Grant Study, the largest study that's ever been done on human beings. George Valiant ran the study for many years, and he was challenged on his findings a few years ago, that he said other people matter. It comes down to the quality of your relationships with other people. And they said, go back and look at your research again. This is too profound a finding. So he went and looked at it again. He came back with an even stronger statement. And he said, happiness is love, full stop. That's what the science of happiness and aging really comes down to, the quality of your relationships with other people. Now, unfortunately, this is also known by people who torture others. And what they do to exacerbate the pain of torture is they tell them that nobody cares about them anymore. Nobody's looking for them. Nobody is trying to find them. They're never going to be rescued from a POW camp. And so because of that, the torture is even more exquisite.